All right, I'm live. Well, I'm alive. I'm live and I'm alive. I haven't posted it in a little bit. I've got a bunch of gigs with like 3 different bands that I haven't played with since last year. So I'm pretty much relearning like 30, 40 songs. It's been a great time. So, I haven't had a lot of time to work on the channel. Go figure, posting YouTube videos once a week is very time consuming. They tried to warn me, but I tried anyway. So I will be hopefully posting a new video next week. But until then, I figured I'd at least try to do a very, very casual kind of demo of how you can use the skills that we've developed so far on the channel to, make some music. I got a fancy new amp that has a looper on it. Oh, I've been having a great time with that. I've got my keyboard and all my stuff worked into the looper. So I'm going to try and build a 12-bar blues backing track and then use an open pentatonic and little pentatonic scale to just like jam, make some music. I'll kind of show you all the things you can do with these 2 shapes. I'm going to try and limit myself to, just the things we've talked about. I'm going to try not to do like any slides or bends or something. But I think at the very end, I'll maybe kind of go a little bit crazier. Not crazy. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not that good. But I'll at least show you kind of where we're going. In level 3, we're going to be talking more about bends and slides and hammer-ons, pull-offs. So I'll show you the difference between what you sound like with what we've talked about so far and, how it's going to change after we've talked about all that stuff. Cool. Well, without further ado, let's try it out. We're doing a 12-bar blues in E. I don't have any, fancy diagrams or whatever. But we need an E7, an A7, and a B7. That was the E7, A7, and B7. I've got this drum track, which we've used for all the shuffle or swing type exercises. And so I want to get this bass in here. And the bass's job is usually to play the root note of the chord. The root note is the note that the chord gets its name from. So the root note of E7 is E. The root note of A7 is A. And the root note of B7 is B. So I'm just going to follow a 12-bar blues in my head. And I'm just going to play the notes E, A, and B when the chords A7, B7, and E7 would be played. I'm going to try and do this all in one go, but we'll see. I'm still getting used to this looper thing. See, I'm already messing up. Hold on. There we go. It's clear. My foot slipped. I should have wore shoes. All right, let's try that again. Sorry. It's going to sound better anyway. Much better. All right. Now, to create a little depth, I could just start playing just these chords. That's going to sound a little don't know, monotone, not monotone, but just like a little too boring. So I'm going to do a layer of just power chords. I could do this E instead of E7, I could do an E5. Which I could do this low E that we did like in Beverly Hills. But I could also do this higher E if you like this power chord shape better. I'm going to try and kind of distribute the notes. I want there to be like some distinct low notes and distinct high notes. So I'm going to try and do this low one. And for the rhythm, you know, it's all kind of about syncopation. You know, you don't want it to be too straight. So I'm going to do kind of like a down, up, 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 down, up, 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 down, which would, I guess, so this. I could do this as an A5. There's B5, A5 right here, B5. And then we go back to B5. So I found those chords. You know, we've got these open strings, E, A, D, G, B, E. And those are the root notes. A power chord, remember, you just find the root note and build this shape off of it. So along this string, we're starting on E. And you just have to remember that E and F are right next to each other. B and C are right next to each other. But every other note, you have to skip a fret. So right off the bat, unfortunately, we start with E, which means F is going to be the next note. Then F to G, we skip a fret. G to A, we skip a fret. So this could be A5. And with this shape, you know, we just have to make sure that we have a root note and then we're skipping a fret and then we've got these two notes here. If I were to keep moving this finger, I've still got a power chord right here. You might think this is the last option, but there's actually this one too. You can pretend like you're just sliding your first finger off, which we normally would play like this. So that's where that comes from. This is an E, and I'm building this power chord shape off of the root note E, and it gives me an E5. And then this note, this open fifth string is A, so I can kind of do the same thing. This is A sharp. If I slide it over here, so my finger's off here, that's A5, and I would normally just play that. And then, since this is A, and that's not E, F, or B, or C, the next note is going to be B, and we're going to have to skip a fret. So there's a B, and I just build a power chord on that. So there's our B5. So we have E5, A5, and B5. And I'm just going to take our generic 12-bar blues, and instead of E7, A7, and B7, I'm just going to take E, E5, A5, and B5. All right, I'm going to try and record that, and hopefully I don't mess up. Cool. So we've got some power chords. That's just kind of giving us a nice foundational layer. Now we want to get some seventh chords in there, make it all stanky. So we got this E7, but I'm already playing a bunch of these notes in that power chord. So that might make it a little too thick if we play those notes. So I'm really just going to play these normal chords, E7, A7, and B7. But I'm going to focus on just these thinner strings. So I just get mostly higher notes. So I've got a layer of guitar doing lower notes and a layer of guitar doing higher notes, and it creates some nice space. All right, and then I was doing this strum pattern, and then there was kind of like a break. I'm going to use that break to play my other chords so that they kind of almost like take turns, and there's not just like too many people stepping on too many toes. So I'm going to do something that's like, let's see, up, see how that sounds. Really, this is all you need. I guess I could put some piano in there or something, but that's no fun. Or whatever, you know. Sorry, I guess I did the fun one first. So that was just using open pentatonic scale, little pentatonic scale. I was just hanging out on that. I did do some bends and some slides and all that. I tried to get a little nasty. But let me try and kind of break down at least like how I think about doing something like that. A 12-bar blues is a nice place to start because it's I don't mean this derogatorily, but it's kind of formulaic. I mean, if you've heard one old blues song, you've kind of heard them all. I'm going to get maybe like a lot of angry emails now. Sorry, I haven't listened to that much blues. I shouldn't say that. But there is, I mean, I don't think it's a hot take to say that it is pretty formulaic. And if you listen to a bunch of blues songs, you'll hear it. And I think that's kind of like a good place to start with improvising, because you can try to emulate those sounds and those runs and those phrases. I think that's a good place to start for most music. We've talked about in the 12-bar blues exercises that the blues is kind of the root of all American music. So if you can get a feel for the phrasing of a blues solo, it's gonna bleed into other genres. So I think the biggest I don't know what I'm trying to say. The very first thing I'm thinking about is where the root note of this pentatonic scale is. We've always talked about this as a G pentatonic scale, but every G, just like every sharp note is also kind of a flat note. F sharp is the same as G flat. G major is the same as E minor. I'll talk about that maybe in more detail someday, but this channel's always more been about like building muscle and less about, talking theory and stuff. Really doesn't matter what you know if you can't make your fingers do all this stuff. So I've been focusing on that. But yeah, you'll just have to believe me. G major is the same as E minor when you're talking scales. So we can call this a G major pentatonic, or we can call it an E minor pentatonic. And with blues, and this is just kind of a blues thing, but it sounds really cool to do E minor pentatonic scales over all these major chords. This is an E major chord, but to get like a really just kind of bluesy sound, it's cool to do minor scales over it, minor pentatonic scales mostly. So the root note, if we're talking G pentatonic, would be this. This is a G. E and F's are next to each other, so this is E, this is F, those are right next door. F to G, you skip a fret. So there's a G. But since we're playing blues in E, we want to make the E's our harmonic center of the scale. So this one, open E, that's easy. This one, that's nice. Here's an E. This is the D string. The fourth string is the D string. If you skip a fret, there's E. So like these are some notes to take account of. I guess there's an E right here as well. It's the same as this open string, which can come in handy when you're trying to make stuff that sounds nasty. So when I'm trying to improvise a solo, normally I'm kind of starting from anywhere. That's kind of the fun, is to just start randomly and see how you can work it to these root notes. You can kind of think of a scale like a solar system, where the root note is the sun and all the other notes in the scale are kind of revolving around the sun and kind of like drawn toward the sun. So kind of what I'm thinking is I'm just starting wherever, I'm seeing what happens. If you play this pentatonic scale, none of the notes will sound bad. That's the beauty of it. It's why it's a good place to start, is you really just can't hit something that sounds bad if you're playing one of these notes. So you start wherever, and then you try to tastefully, artistically work your way toward this E. Maybe I start from here. And I wasn't really skipping around. I was just playing the notes of the scale. I played all of the notes, working my way past the E, and then I went back past the E, and then I went to E. It kind of feels like you're going around a drain, where you just kind of keep passing it, and then you finally go through. Let me try that again. So I'm working toward this E on the fourth string. I went past it. I went past it again, and then I finally landed on it. Going past that root note, your ears, are drawn to that note as well, just because you've been listening to music your whole life. And all music follows these rules, whether they mean to or not. I shouldn't say all music, most pop music. So every time you kind of go past that, your ear is drawn to it, and then you're kind of like teasing the audience. Once you finally land on that note, they're like, oh, all is right with the world. So that's kind of the game you're playing, is just trying to set up this tension in the listener's ear, and then resolving that tension by landing on the root note. So let me try to just make some stuff up and listen for that. I'm going to be trying to kind of accentuate that, which might make my solo sound dumb, because I'm not really thinking about what I normally think about. I'm hyperfixating on making a good demonstration. So I'm hoping to make this a more formal video eventually, but I'm really just trying to appease the YouTube gods. It's been almost maybe 2 weeks since I posted something, and they're gonna think that I gave up, and they're not gonna pump my videos anymore. So got to do what I got to do. But hopefully you get some good info out of this. All right, here we go. There's my root note. There we go, yeah. So I went from that high note and then landed on the lower one. Trying to create some tension. And then there's the release of the tension. There's the release of the tension. A little bonus release. So that's probably the biggest thing to think about, is trying to end your phrases. We're thinking about musical sentences. So think about that as the period at the end of the sentence. You're just kind of starting wherever. It's like a sentence, you don't know when to end it. There, now it's done. mean, that's kind of the best way to sound intentional, is to like end very definitively on that note, and usually kind of on a 1 if you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You know, that usually is a good way to like really enforce that I am done with this statement. So, you know, that right there gives you kind of a lot of direction. Another thing I think will help with just kind of creating variety, so it doesn't sound like you're just playing a scale up and down, is to find little zones. So I think, you know, this little pentatonic is itself a nice little zone. I think of kind of a zone as almost like 4-ish notes on a pair of 2 strings, like this. It's kind of like a little zone I like to hang out in. This, which I guess is only 3 notes. Then, you know, if you're hanging out in this open pentatonic scale, that's a great place to hang out. I really like in here, like these groups, I guess it's 4 notes with these open strings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But usually when I'm improvising, you know, I'm not thinking, oh, I gotta play all these notes. It's kind of like I'm hanging out for a measure or 2 in this zone, and then I'm gonna hang out for a measure or 2 in this zone. And it helps you kind of build a better story, I think. It gives it more shape. I think that's maybe the better way to think about it. You know, you're playing these low notes and high notes and low notes and high notes, and you're trying to create this interesting shape of a solo that has like peaks and troughs and stuff. So if you're just kind of like playing all over the scale, your solo looks like this, and it's, you know, kind of, again, a little boring looking, you know, when it's just kind of so up, down, up, down, up, down. But, you know, if you can hang out some low notes and then kind of work your way up to some high notes and then hanging back out in some low notes and then high notes, but really low notes, you know, it gives it a more recognizable shape and recognizable character. So let's try that. I'm going to try and hang out in some zones and end some statements on these root notes. E on the 4th string, 2nd fret. E, just open 6th string, open 1st string, and then this 2nd string, 5th fret. That's part of the little pentatonic, if you're following along. All right. I'm going to start out. I like hanging out in here. This is nice and in the middle. I like starting here. I can go lower if I want, and I can work my way up to some high peaks. So I'm going to start there, and I'm going to try and end there too. I'm going to maybe try and do, let's make a pretty a plan of attack. This is why I script my videos. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm going to start in the middle. I'm going to maybe go to some slightly higher notes. Then I'm going to go to some lower notes. And then I'm going to middle notes, some really high notes, and then work my way back down to where I started. We'll see how that goes. Okay. I know I lied. I said I wouldn't do bands, but I couldn't help myself. Sometimes it just sounds so good. So I think that aiming for root notes, thinking about zones, and thinking about the shape of your melody. I think zones in itself is, you know, will help. It will help give you kind of more variety in your sound. But thinking about zones and the shape of your solo, I think will really give you like a lot to think about. I see it all the time with my students. I show them a scale, I turn on a backing track, and I'm like, every note you play will sound fine as long as you stick to that scale. But they still are just kind of like, you know, they're just still not sure really what to do. But I feel like if you're thinking about trying to work your way toward these specific notes and the shape and trying to stick to like create little zones in your mind, that's a lot to be juggling while you're soloing. So at risk of overwhelming you with ideas, I maybe won't say much more. But yeah, I'm gonna just kind of start jamming. I'll try and work in some more hammer-ons, pull-offs, slides, and bends, so you can hear the difference between what we've worked on so far and kind of where we're heading. And yeah, be looking out for me thinking about the zones that I'm playing in, thinking about working towards specific these root notes, and then thinking about the shape of the solo I'm playing. Here we go. All right, well, that's where we're going to try and get to. So stay tuned in the channel. I'm here. I'm making videos. I'm sorry. I've got to practice. We always have to practice. You have to practice. I have to practice. Just because I'm making YouTube videos showing you how to play guitar doesn't mean I'm not doing hours of practicing myself. That's what I get for playing all these instruments and never just picking one. So look out for the next video. I'm going to be doing some hammer-on pull-off stuff. And we'll be getting into some riffs. So yeah, tell your friends. Maybe just like go to a playlist and before you go to bed, just hit play. I need some watch time hours. But thank you for watching. See ya. And yes.